in giving away his name. Antony was a thrilling password to that mysterious something which she expected to happen in Egypt, and already she regarded my friend as a ram caught in the bushes, for a sacrifice on her altar. But instead of screening him I had dragged him in front of the footlights. But fortunately there was still time to jerk down the curtain. I threw a glance at Bridget and Monny, and was relieved to find that their attention was distracted by a new arrival, Miss Rachel Guest from Salem, Massachusetts. A pale, thin, lanky copy of our Rose, with the beauty and bloom left out, but a pair of eyes to redeem the colourless face. Oh yes, a pair of eyes, strange, hungry, waiting eyes. When I am alone, I fear Monny's favourite protégée, who started out to see the world on a legacy of $2,000, and won Miss Gilder's admiration and hospitality through her unassuming pluck. To my mind she is the ideal adventuress of a new, unknown, and therefore deadly type, but for once I rejoiced at the sight of the pallid, fragile woman, so cheerful in spite of frail health, so frank about her 28 years. She had news to tell of a nature so exciting that, after a whisper or two, Cleopatra forgot Antony in her desire to know the latest development in the ship's mystery. "My stewardess says he won't let his wife land till we're all off," murmured the ex-schoolmistress in her colourless voice. She heard the end of a conversation when she carried the poor girl's lunch to the door, just a word or two. "So we shan't see her again, I suppose." "Oh yes, we shall," said Monny. "If wretched Bey can get a private boat, so can I. I'll not desert her, if I have to stay on board the Laconia the whole night." All four began talking together eagerly, and blessing Miss Guest, I sneaked away. Presently I saw that clever Neil Sheridan and handsome actor-like Willis Bailey, the two bêtes noires of wretched Bey, had joined the group. By this time the roofs and domes and minarets of Alexandria sparkled in clearly sketched outlines between sunset sky and sea. Sunset of Egypt, which divided ruby flame of cloud, emerald Dura, gold of desert, and sapphire waters into separate bands of colour, vivid as the stripes of a rainbow. There was a new buzz of excitement on the decks and in the ivy-draped veranda café. Those who had been studying Baedeker gabbled history, ancient and modern, until the conquest of Alexandria and the bombardment of '82 became a hopeless jumble in the ears of the ignorant. Bores who had travelled inflicted advice on victims who had not. People told each other pointless anecdotes of the last time I was in Egypt, while those forced to listen did so with the air of panthers waiting to pounce. A pause for breath on the part of the enemy gave the wished-for opportunity to spring into the breach with an adventure of their own. We took an Arab pilot on board, the first Arab ever seen by the ladies of my party, and before the red torch of sunset had burned down to dusky purple, tenders like big black turtles were swimming out to the Laconia. We slaves of the Rose, however, had surrendered all personal interest in these objects. The word of Miss Gilder had gone forth, and unless Rashid Bey changed his mind at the last minute, we were all to lurk in ambush until he appeared with his wife. Then, somehow, Monny was to snatch her chance for a word with the ship's mystery, and whatever happened, none of us were to stir until it had been snatched. Arguments, even from Biddy, were of no avail, and mine were silenced by cold permission to go away by myself if I chose. It was terrible, it was wicked to talk of people making their own beds and then lying in them. It was nonsense to say that, even if the wife of Rashid Bey asked for help, we could do nothing. Of course we would do something. If the girl wanted to be saved, she should be saved, if Monny had to act alone. Whatever happened, Mr. Sheridan and Mr. Bailey must remain in the background, as the very sight of them would drive wretched Bey wild. I was thinking of Antony's surprise when, one after the other, two tenders should reach the quay without me, and if the Gilded Rose had not been so sweet, her youthful cocksureness would have made me yearn to slap her. In spite of all, however, the girl's excitement became contagious as passengers crowded down the gangway, and Rashid Bey did not appear. "Allah! Allah!" cried the boatmen and the Arab porters as they hauled huge trunks off the ship onto a float. Then one after the other the two tenders puffed away, packed from stem to stern. A few people for whom there was no room embarked in small boats manned by jabbering Arabs. Two of these cockle shells still moved up and down under the black, mountainous side of the ship, and the officer whose duty it was to see the passengers off was visibly restless. He wanted to know if my lordship was ready, and my lordship's brain was straining after an excuse for further delay, when a man and woman arrived opportunely, Rechid Bey in a veiled, muffled form hooked to his arm, a slender, appealing little figure, and through the veil I fancied that I caught a gleam of large, wistful, anxious eyes. The ladies were lying in wait out of sight, and I dodged behind the sturdy blue shoulders guarding the gangway. This was my first glimpse of the ship's mystery, and though I did not like my job, I had to surprise Rechid Bey and take his mind off his wife, my curiosity was pricked. The figure in sealskin looked very girlish, the veiled head was bowed. The mystery took on human personality for me, and Monny Gilder was no longer obstinate, she was a loyal friend. I did not see that we could be of any use to the poor little fool who had married a Turk, yet I was suddenly ready to do what I could. As Rechid Bey brought his wife to the top of the gangway, I lounged out, and spoke. Disconcerted, the stout, good-looking man of 30 let drop the arm of the girl, putting her behind him. And this was what Monny wanted. They would have an instant for a few disjointed words. Monny might perhaps have time to promise help which the girl dared not ask, even behind her husband's back. "Good evening," I said in French, taking advantage of a smoke-room acquaintance. "Is that smart boat down there for you? I was trying to secure it in my best Arabic, but the fellow said it was engaged." "Yes, it is mine," Rechid answered civilly, trying to hide his annoyance. "I telegraphed from Naples to a friend in Alexandria to send me a private boat. I do not like crowds." "Neither do I, so I waited too," I explained. "They told me there were always boats, and my big luggage has gone. I suppose yours has too?" "No doubt," said Rechid Bey. "Good night, my Lord Borough." He turned quickly to his wife, as if to catch her at something, but the slim, veiled mystery stood meekly waiting his will. To my intense relief Monny and her friends were invisible. I could hardly wait until the two figures had passed out of sight down the gangway, to know whether my skirmishing attack had been successful. "Well?" I asked as Miss Gilder, Mrs. Jones, Cleopatra and Rachel Guest, and two maids filed out from concealment. "Did I give you time enough? Did you get the chance you wanted?" "Yes, thank you ever so much," said Monny, with one of those dazzling smiles that would make her a beauty even if she were not the favourite Sunday supplement heiress. "I counted on you, and she had counted on me. She must have known I wouldn't fail her, for she had this bit of paper ready. When I jumped out she slipped it into my hand. We didn't need to say a word, and Rechid Bey has no idea I came near her." "A bit of paper?" I echoed, with interest. For it sounded the obvious secret thing, a bit of paper stealthily slid from hand to hand. "Yes, with her address on it, nothing more in writing but two other words, pricked with a pin. 'Save me.' Don't you see, if her husband had pounced on it, no harm would have been done. He wouldn't have noticed the pin pricks, as a woman would. I thought she was going to live in Cairo, and I believe she thought so too, at first. But she's written down the name of a house in a place called Asiut. Did you ever hear of such a town, Lord Ernest?" "Oh yes," said I. "The Nile boats stop there, and people see tombs and mummied cats, and buy silver shawls." "Good!" said Monny. "My boat shall stop there, but not only for tombs or cats or silver shawls. I have an idea that the poor girl is frightened, and wants me to help her escape." "Great heavens!" I exclaimed. "You mustn't on any account get mixed up in an adventure of that sort. Remember this is Egypt." "I don't care," said Monny, "if it's the moon." She believed that this settled the matter. I believed the exact opposite. But I left it at that, for the moment, as the boat was waiting, and Asiut seemed a long way off. This was my first lesson in what Brigit called Monny's little ways, but the second lesson was on the heels of the first. Chapter 3